Well, what we're talking about here is a response to a body of evidence that's been built up over 5 years through the anecdote to evidence work that was published a year ago, and through a series of visits and conversations with every diocese in the country. And from that we have understood the scale of issues that face the Church, the trends which have existed in the past with declines in attendance and congregations, and the projections now of where that goes given the age profile that's built up over the last 3 decades. And all we're doing here is seeking to respond in every aspect to the challenge of ensuring that the Church of England continues its unique and wonderful role to be active in every community in this country.
Oh, if we don't do anything, well, let's not get into apocalyptic language. Of course, the Church of England has survived over a long time. And sometimes people say, oh, you're just making a lot of noise about how difficult it'll all be. And people have accused us, I think, of trying to be too dramatic. But I do think we are near the last chance saloon. There are parts of the country where the Church of England will probably not be surviving in 30 years' time unless we do something to bring new people to church, to re-engage with our communities, to build on the really good stuff that's already going on. No one's saying nothing's happening. What we're saying is a sea change is needed whereby the church needs to restructure itself in order to evangelise the country.
I think we have to be forward-looking and think really hard about what those research papers and mathematical projections are telling us. Not because anybody wants the numbers to go that way, but we do need to understand the scale of urgency that exists. Then I'd like to get to the point where as many as possible of synod and diocesan synods and people who never sit in a synod can be not just the recipients of this change programme, but the advocates of it. I'd like them to understand it's not our programme, it's theirs. And we will certainly be open to listening as to how things can be improved. The implementation will only be beneficial if it takes place at every grassroots. This isn't about one strategy about the Church of England. It is about the Church of England supporting the 40-odd dioceses in each of their strategies.
Jesus calls us into a rhythm of life, which is about loving God and loving our neighbour. That rhythm begins with our baptism, whether we're baptised as children or as adults, as our lives are dedicated to God, and it's then sustained as we go through our lives, as we gather in worship, and particularly through the Eucharist, as we come together to be with the risen Christ and one another, and as we're sent out week by week in God's mission and service in the world. Discipleship is right at the centre of who we're called to be as the people of God.
I'm really excited by the task groups because I think for the first time we're grasping nettles which we haven't grasped properly before, and there's a real chance of change. I hope that when we come to the elections for the 2015 Synod, the folks will stand who actually want change and realise that change is absolutely crucial to the mission of the Church over the next 10, 20 years.
The most important thing is that more and more we become, as the Church of England, a community of missionary disciples committed to loving God, loving one another, and loving God's world.
What this is about is sowing the seed of the Church of Christ of the future, building on the great things that are happening now. So yes, the consequences of inaction or failure would be horrible. What we're trying to do is change the balance now, so that those flames of growth which are already burning can become much more apparent, much more widespread, and that they can be nurtured so that this church rises again in glory. And I'll always use this phrase, so that the risen Christ can be restored to the centre of this country, its conscience and its culture.